I am so excited to share that you can now watch all of my upcoming podcasts on my brand new YouTube channel for the What Now podcast. So many of you have asked for more video content, and now you can watch these powerful conversations face to face. Every story, every testimony, every moment of faith and resilience, you'll now find it all on YouTube. So I'll be posting more of my episodes there, along with new short clips and deeper insights to help strengthen your faith and remind you that you are never alone on this journey. I invite you to subscribe on my YouTube channel at Podcast What Now. That's at Podcast What Now, so you never miss an episode.
When I did comedy, a lot of it was therapy for me. A lot of the jokes that I would do, I'm like, this is funny, but it's my way of communicating it to the world. But this actually happens. People always would assume that I'm a convert to the church.
It's interesting how you were in acting, you're in comedy, you're in all these different career paths, and then you've transitioned now to a religious path where you were teaching, institute for over 10 years, seminary.
I was like, do I want to be an expert at being funny, or do I want to be a funny expert? My mentor, he wanted to share the gospel, and so he's like, where will you be in 1,000 years? And will your family be there with you? It really started getting me to think. And I came up with this phrase that changed the trajectory of my life. That was that question, will this matter in 1,000 years? And it made me think of I want to do something that matters. And can I possibly take this gift and use it in a different way and still be fulfilled?
This is the What Now podcast.
Today I'm here with Stephen Jones. Welcome.
How you doing? I'm excited.
It's so good to have you on the podcast.
This is a long time coming, isn't it?
It is a long time coming. I've been listening to your podcast. I love it. And you keep it real.
Well, that's the name, right? Let's get real. Yeah, we had to find something that was just simple to say, but obviously, you got to keep it real always, always, always.
You got to keep it real. We're going to just start by getting to know you a little bit. So can you share just a little bit about your background so listeners can get to know you better?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Tallahassee, Florida. My parents, it's basically, I come from a multicultural background, right? So my mom, she's Caucasian, she's white, she's from Georgia. My dad, he's black, he's dark, and I always joke around. I'm like, close your eyes. That's how dark he is. He's real dark. He's dark, right? But my dad, but you have these two, I come from, I like to say the inheritance, the cultures that I've inherited, because it's really given me a perspective that's a little bit different, if you can just imagine 5 little kids, I grew up with 5 kids, and this is the South, this is 1983 is when I'm born. So, after in the 80s, it wasn't popular to have this type of relationship. I think it wasn't even legal to be married to somebody of the opposite, of a black person and a white person couldn't even legally be married in all of the states until I think it was the late 60s. Wow. And so it just kind of gives you an idea of where I come from. My dad is very direct. For him to even be in a relationship like that and not care about it, it kind of just gives you perspective of the type of family that I grew up in. And so, I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. That's the capital. But I was a kid that was my creativity started at a young age from as far as I can remember. I've been dancing since dancing was dancing. I did tap and jazz, had the, tights with sequins gloves. There's this picture that my mom has of me with these, I'm like, oh,
Michael Jackson.
Mom, yeah, Michael Jackson. Mom, why did you let me wear those tights? Why did, how come you didn't say anything, And,
it was okay then.
It was okay then, right? I don't know. But the 80s. But the 80s is when I grew up. And I grew up with 5 kids in my family. I'm number 4 of 5. But from a young age, as far as I can remember, I was either dancing, singing, creating something, And I grew up in the church. I was born. People always ask me so were you a convert to the church? I'm not a convert to the church. My parents, they got baptized in 1979. And it was at a time when, in the South, again, it wasn't really popular to have that type of relationship. But in the church, this is the kind of environment that we grew up in. My dad, when he joined the church, wow, he had this like really interesting experience where he had this dream, and in his dream, there were these two sisters from the ward, and these two sisters, they were the ones that were working with him to set up the missionary lessons and stuff like that. And he was trying to decide if he wanted to get baptized. He thought it was true. He believed it was true, but he was kind of wrestling with it. And one day he took a nap, and while he was taking a nap in this dream, there were these two women, and they were dressed in white, and they came up to the door, and they knocked on his door, and he opened it up, and there they are, dressed in white. And he said that he saw the two women, and they were like, Richmond, it's time. Like, basically, like,
Wow.
what are you going to do? And at that same moment in the house, while he wakes up to somebody knocking on the door, and it's the same two women.
No way.
And they're like, hey, what's going on? How is everything going with the missionary discussion? Kind of following up with him. So he was like, whoa, I got to do this. So we grew up in the church, but when my dad joined the church, there were people who, this is a time where, I mean, even in the South, there's good people that are members of the church, but there were people who didn't want to home teach with him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he grew up in that type of era, but I didn't really feel that a lot. Because my dad he honestly just did not care. Like he didn't use it.
He just owned it.
He just owned it. Yeah. He didn't, but that's where I come from. My two parents that are amazing, both of them amazing. My mom is, she's an amazing service-oriented woman. My dad is that's where I get the realness from, is from him. Like he does not mince words. I mean, I asked him one day, I said, Dad, because he said before he got baptized, he was really, really tough. Like he said he would get in fights all the time. And I said, like, how often would you get in fights? Like, and I just threw out a number. I was like, what, like once a month or something? Like, and I was like, no, let me just go to the extreme, like every week. And he's like, yeah, just about every week I get in a fight.
Wow.
But then he got baptized. He and my mom, they met in they both worked at McDonald's. Okay. My dad was this like really, really strong, 5'6", 160 pounds. He bench pressed 475.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Strong and mighty.
And he meets my mom, this like girl that used to go to Catholic school. She just came up to Florida State area in Tallahassee because of a lot of her friends went there. She went to the junior college. And then she starts working at McDonald's, and she meets my dad, and they get married. My sister was born, and then it wasn't easy for him, is what I'm trying to say. Like people would, my dad would tell stories of how like people would call him the N-word, right? And he would he was at a restaurant, and somebody pours. The waiter pours a drink on my mom. And
wow.
And then my dad, like on a movie, he takes the guy by his belt and just drags him across the table, like you see on the movies. If people would, if people, so my mom would take him to work, and then they would see, oh, she's married to a black guy. And then at the end of the day, the restaurant, the owner of the company, or his manager would fire him, and then my dad beat him up. My dad beat up the guy who fired him. It's just, that's how he was. But he changed a lot after he got baptized. Like completely.
And how long were they married before he got baptized?
Oh, they were maybe a year.
They have kids?
No. They got baptized when my sister was 2, so they were probably about 2 years or so.
So that just kind of softened him a little bit.
Oh, people said they didn't even recognize him. They did not recognize him at all.
Isn't that amazing, the transformation? So it's interesting because we had a friend whose daughter served in Alabama, and she said it was really hard for some of the white members, to fellowship the Black investigators because they didn't want that cross-cultural interaction. Still, I mean, this is like 2022.
I think that and by all means, I don't want, this doesn't have to be
a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing, but I think a lot of it, if I'm being honest, even with my life, the most issues that I've ever faced is when it comes to money and relationships, the competition, right? And I don't know why, but I think that, I don't know, for some reason, it's the I don't know if it's a survival thing of like, I want to protect my genes. I don't know what it is, but it's like, I think that's a lot of it's underlying that, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. I would wonder what it would be like growing up in the church as a Black man, especially in the South. It is a different culture in the South.
Well, it's so interesting to me because it's such a variety, it's such a vast variety of experiences that you have.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me, I mean, to this day, when people say, are there racist people in the church? And I'm like, I'm from the South. I mean, people are still racial in the South. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't, that's just my personal experience. But growing up as a person of color, my parents were so good about not making that a big deal that it didn't really affect me in that way to where it was, I mean, think about it. My mom is white. I don't even see her like that. I don't see my mom that way. But I do know that people would be like, "Are you adopted?" And I'm like, "No, that's my mom." Like I don't even see her like that,
Yeah.
But I never. But it was hard. Probably dating was it's been the hardest part. Relationships has been the hardest part. Where I used to joke around in college because I would always say it's kind of like Costco. I was like, people always want to get a free sample, but they never want to make a purchase. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like they just,
so funny.
but it's like they would date, you would date, but dating was probably the most challenging part to me.
I bet.
Because
you went to BYU, and BYU is primarily white. I don't think I even saw a Black person when I went to BYU in 1989.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's difficult.
Well, if I'm being real with you, like when I did comedy, a lot of it was therapy for me. If I look back in hindsight, a lot of the jokes that I would do, I'm like, this is funny, but it's my way of communicating it to the world. But this actually happens. Like people always would assume that I'm a convert to the church, which I think is funny. It would always be things like that so when I was on campus, I had this like track jacket. Cause I mean, it's just, we could talk about it later, but I was the mascot. So like I had the whole get up for the athletes, and I was in the Smith Fieldhouse at BYU, and I'm just walking in there, and Cosmo has this big like hockey bag, right? And so you don't even know, like, what's in that thing, right? And this guy walks up to me and he's like, track. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't run track. People would assume that I'm on the football team.
Racial profiling. Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, but I would joke. So I would do jokes about
track.
That. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
you're skinny. Yeah. You got the body for it.
Well, no. So, but it's just there's just, and to me, a lot of it's just, I like my dad. Like, I mean, thick skin. I don't see it that way, but in a way of like, a lot of it's just, people don't know. I don't think anybody's coming at me thinking like, I'm going to attack this guy. He's in track. He runs track. It's familiarity. Like if people have never met somebody, there's some people that have literally never personally known a Black person. I mean, living in Utah for sure,
Crazy.
And that's just, that's the reality.
Well, I have a question for you on that because you were Cosmo. And so as Cosmo, you're disguised, you're wearing, this headpiece. So did you feel kind of liberated? You're in that thing and you can be yourself. I mean, you can just kind of
course.
I don't
ever think this is going to be, because you got to think being from both cultures, think about this. Like I'm Black. I have Black culture. When I'm with Black people, I don't think, I don't understand white people. And when I'm with white people, I don't think, because my mom raised, I mean, I know who Shania Twain is, I know whose bed, your boots been under, you know what I'm saying? I know who Shania Twain is, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, think about it. My mom, I know who Kenny G is, every time my mom would clean, she'd play Kenny G.
Kenny G.
And so
I loved Kenny G in the 80s.
See what I mean? But then I also understand both cultures, but I don't really think like I'm liberated because this is kind of deep, but I mean, to and it's not, some people that will hear this will be like, why? I'm not complaining about this, okay?
Right.
To Black people, or people will say, you're always talking about it. It's like, well, that's me. That's who I am, you know?
Right. It's your identity.
Well, when I always joked about this, and I would say, if I say that I'm white, that's just confusing, right? But if I say that I'm Black, I get more money for college. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, that's just, I'm just being strategic about this, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm getting a scholarship.
but ironically, it was kind of cool to be Cosmo because I could kind of escape, but Cosmo is like a celebrity, you know? It's like everybody wants you to, they'll like give you their children, okay? They'll give you their baby. You're holding like two, I got a 1-year-old here, a 3-year-old here, and they like shove, you know? I'm like, dude, and I can't even see. Like I can barely see out of these little holes. But what's funny is they actually put makeup on your eyes, right? And it's to where it looks dark in there, right?
Yeah.
And so it'd be funny because I would always dance and people are like, man, Cosmo can dance, you know? And so somebody was looking at my eyes and they could see and they were like, Dad, Cosmo's Black. And I'm like, how do they know? I'm like, how do they know? And I didn't realize, I was like, oh, because the black makeup, you know? But but I wouldn't say liberating. It was just interesting. Being a mascot, it's like living this second life. Nobody knew. My roommates didn't know. I'm like living this second life that nobody knows about, you know?
Yeah,
and
that's how Charlie Bird felt too. I interviewed Charlie Bird.
Yeah.
You know, he's a gay man. And so he felt like behind the mask, he could just be free to be himself. He's an amazing dancer. He's the one who kind of pioneered the Cougarettes collaboration, you know, and he's up there just crushing it. Or did you? Were you the OG on that?
Look, no. By all means, he set it on fire. But we've been doing that because back when I was doing it in 2010, people didn't have phones like they have now. You had like 8 gigs on your phone. And so, you know, it wasn't as easily captured. But I don't mean that to take away from that at all. Yeah. But I don't know. Cosmo was kind of more of like who I really am. You know what I mean? And so me personally, I didn't really feel, I wouldn't call it free. I just call it like, just like it's almost like living another life. It's really weird. And then all the people that you just saw, there are people that I held their son. There are people that probably to this day, because it was 2010, like I held you, you don't even know. And I was holding you, you know? And so that's just interesting.
Well, I want to talk about the comedy a little bit too, because you're a man of faith, but the comedy world can be pretty crass and lots of language. I mean, how was it being in that kind of world with that kind of crossover? I mean, how did you kind of keep it clean? I mean, now it feels like it's trending. You have like, you know, Trey Kennedy and you have Jim Gaffigan and you have these other people, and a lot of people are liking the clean humor. When you were doing that, I mean, how did you approach that as a man of faith?
Well, let me tell you this. Before I started doing comedy, I remember going to a comedy club. It was Comedy Sports, and we did it for award activity, and I was like, this is going to be so corny. Like, how are they going to do this? How is it going to be possible that they're going to actually it's going to be corny, you know, not that it has to, I didn't think that it couldn't be good, but like you have to be really good. And then and that's the thing. Like it's actually more challenging to be funny and clean. And so I feel like here in Utah, a lot of the entertainers are actually very good. Like if you see Dry Bar Comedy, they do a really good job at this. Like they have comedians that come. It's harder to be clean. It's harder. Yeah. It's easy to do a joke. Like even when you're a kid, you do fart jokes and it's like, you can just get an instant laugh, but you have to be more thoughtful. You have to be more,
it takes more skill.
It takes more skill. Yeah. And you have to be more, thoughtful about it. But I mean, I never really tried to do it. It kind of randomly happened actually when I even started. But I was always the guy that I would always be just telling stories. And so the narrative craft to me and the engagement, because you don't always have to be funny as a comedian. I think one of the things that I learned is like, you always have to be interesting. And so I think that people appreciate interesting. And so as long as you can be interesting, you don't always have to be funny and people will still engage. right? And so
Yeah.
if you can, I try to balance that, but
Well, my daughter
yeah,
used to follow your YouTube channel 13 years ago.
that's crazy.
And
Uh,
she knew I was interviewing you, and she
uh,
sent me a clip of your Shiz Mormons Say, that parody. I was dying.
listen, this is the funniest thing.
Hilarious.
Literally 2 days ago, so all my kids, we got 6 kids now. So the shower, hot water heater, we got to get like 3 hot water heaters or something.
Uh-huh.
So there's a part in that clip where I'm like, what do I say? I'm like, what the freak? There's no freaking hot water. I literally sometimes will like say parts of that, and I'm like, man, I just quoted that dang video. I literally said it almost exactly the same way. Even though I was kind of joking, I started saying some of the stuff from that video. It's crazy.
Which has almost 7,000 hits on it. I mean, it resonated.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it's funny. I mean, it's clean humor. You can have clean humor. And it's interesting how you were in acting, you're in comedy, you're in all these different career paths. And then you've transitioned now to a religious path
Yeah.
where you were teaching, institute for over 10 years, seminary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did you make that? That's a big transition, going from
Oh.
comedy into religious studies.
Well, see, the thing, somebody told me this.
How did you do that?
Well, first of all, I think I was like, do I want to be an expert at being funny, or do I want to be a funny expert?
That's interesting.
Somebody told me that, and I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated college, so I did comedy, and it was Cosmo in college, and then when I left, I wanted to get an MBA, and then I was doing comedy, and I was like, should I do the Hollywood thing? I was like, I don't want to lose my soul. Not that you can't do it, but I was worried about that. But I was actually working in the technology business. I worked for a tech company that was really, really successful. And one day, I remember like, I just hit the wall where I was like, this is just not the thing for me. I was like, it felt like I was in this cage. Like I was like, from being on the stage, like I had never, even in college, I had a job where I worked for a law firm and I drove everywhere. I was like not tied to a desk,
Yeah.
And so I remember I would go to work and I was just never, it just was not fulfilling to me at all. The money was great. The company was on a trajectory, and it did. It like sold, like it made like 100 millionaires the day that they went public,
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot there, but I just wasn't fulfilled. And I remember one day, I was working in sales in the tech industry. Things were going well, but I felt so much anxiety. And I remember I called my friend out of the blue, and I was telling him about my experience, and he was saying to me, he said, there's this clip that makes me think of you that from Steve Harvey. And I pulled it up and I watched it. And in this clip, Steve Harvey, he says, see, he's like, because he's a comedian. And so he said, people used to tell me that my gift was that I'm funny. And he's like, that's not my gift. He said, that's my talent. He said, my gift is that I can take information, I can recode it, and I can make you laugh. I can take information, I can resynthesize it, and I can make you I can get you motivated. I can take information, I can resynthesize it, and I can inspire you. And I was like, huh, because that's basically what comedy does. Like you take something, and then you kind of like communicate it in a way that people are like, oh yeah, that's true. And so it makes you laugh, right? And so in that process,
you do that for seminary.
Yeah,
you
so
can do that for seminary students to make it interesting.
Exactly. It's the same gift. And so I kind of like had this identity that when I was struggling, because like I was this mascot, I was a comedian, and so I kind of put those as my identity, right?
Sure.
And then I remember this one day, my mentor, his name is Scott Savage. He was doing a sales training, and he said he was talking about how in sales, he's like, questions are very powerful, and he said how he was like, questions like basically can transform a whole conversation. And he said he had this experience where he was on this plane, and somebody was asking him, he wanted to share the gospel, and so he said, after the conversation, they had this beautiful conversation. At the end, as he's leaving the plane, he said, "Hey, where will you be in 1,000 years? And will your family be there with you?"
Deep.
And he just
That's
said,
an excellent
he said, and if you want to know the answer to that, here's my card, and I'd love to talk to you about it. And I was like,
mic drop.
whoa. And so at
Mic
that,
drop.
while I was at this tech company, it really started getting me to think. And I came up with this phrase that like changed the trajectory of my life. That was that question, like, will this matter in 1,000 years?
Yeah.
Will this matter in 1,000 years? Like, and it made me think of like, I want to do that. I want to do something that matters. And can I possibly take this gift and use it in a different way and still be fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
And so from that point, I was like, I want to teach seminary. And so I went into that whole process, and it's pretty intense to become a seminary teacher, to be honest. And so I went all in to go towards that, and I started teaching.
It's amazing. And the thing is, if you can take kids that age and make it interesting and make it resonate with them, that's a real skill. So you can use your comedy skills and your communication skills to make it resonate with these kids. You're not the out of the box, dry, boring seminary teacher. You're like getting it to connect with them.
Again,
That's a great skill.
Well, going back to that idea, it doesn't always have to be funny, but it always has to be interesting.
Right.
And think about being a mascot. You have to be able to communicate without speaking. And so you have to be more observant. You have to be able to notice what makes people connect. You have to connect with people non-verbally, right?
Right.
And so I feel like that's helped me as a teacher as well to, and even with comedy, to really pay attention to what connects with people. Because you could I always say it like this, you can take truth and put it on a plate and just give it to somebody, right? And it doesn't really, people think that they can do that. They think, because the word of God is powerful, right? Like, and I really strongly believe that. But when I would teach, it almost would seem as if just read the verses and it'll be fine. But what if the person's heart is locked down, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a lot to it than just preaching. Because if you go to a restaurant, everybody serves chicken, beef, and steak. No, chicken, steak, and fish, right? But every restaurant is different. You'd rather get it from there. So the way you serve it on the plate matters. And so that's what comedy has really helped me with. Is
timing.
And timing. And it's an emotional thing. You can feel it. You can feel it. You can to make a connection with somebody, it's more than just a logical thing. It's more than just what makes sense. You know, you have all of those at play whenever you're teaching and when you're doing comedy and when you're basically doing anything, I think. You know?
Well, the thing is, one of your really good skills is being real. Being just real and vulnerable and open. And I think when you're that way, people connect with it, especially younger kids, like college age kids, high school kids, when they can tell when you're, you know, their BS radar is pretty good, you know? Loney sass is what we call it.
Oh, yeah.
They know. And so when you're teaching something like that in doctrine, they have questions and you're being real and you're being open, but in a very faithful lens, right? You're trying to keep them from leaving the church over a lot of these things they have big questions about, and they can see you as a valuable resource to come to. I mean, that's important. I mean, you spent 10 years doing that. Now you've transitioned to this Get Real podcast. And how did that evolve? I mean, what have you experienced there?
I think that one of the most powerful communication skills that is overlooked by far is listening.
Yes.
And as a teacher, I remember when I first started, I tried to kind of come in like the entertainer guy, and just naturally. I mean, I wasn't trying to entertain. It was just what I did, you know? But one year in 2020, when COVID hit, that's when everything changed for me. Because that year, everybody came in with their masks, right? I remember it was, I was teaching these ninth graders, and they all came into the room. mask over their face, all I could see was what their eyes. Like to this day, I see some of them and they'll be like, "Hey, Brother Jones." And I'm like, "Hold up, go like this." You know? I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, what's up, Susan?" Okay, And I remember you now, but
Your eyes.
I started focusing more. So like I had a goal that year to connect with every student in some way and listen. And so I had them fill out these cards and they would put down, I had 2 questions. What is the hardest question that you have yet to find a satisfactory answer? Or what is the hardest circumstance that you are currently facing? And that question was mind-blowing because they weren't asking, a lot of them were asking questions about, okay, this generation, I think that we kind of got it like in like when the internet hit, you had a lot of people attacking the church because it's like all this information was available and accessible. But this
rise, the time.
Yeah, they had it. And so people were like, man, I never knew this. Nobody's ever told me this, right? But this generation, they just want to, they're real. They just want to know the truth. They want to have a personal relationship with God. And so I was so surprised at what they would ask. And so just taking the time to listen. And then whenever I would teach, it made me slow down more. And instead of trying to preach at them, I just was like, okay, why did they ask that? Like I would always ask myself, what's the question behind their question?
Yeah.
They're asking that question, but what is the question? What is the belief that they have that's causing them to ask that in the first place?
What's the real intent behind that?
Yeah. Like, okay. A lot of these kids, a lot of them, they just want to know. I think at that age, their understanding of who God is, a lot of times they connected with how their parents interpret the gospel.
Yeah.
Or a person of authority that may have hurt them, that they trust, they associate with God.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's very common in our culture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so just by the questions, like, well, a lot of them like, well, how do I really know? They don't even believe that they can make it to the highest degree of glory.
Mm-hmm.
Close your eyes. How many of you think that you'll make it to the celestial kingdom? Just a few. Mm-hmm. I think Anthony Sweat did a study on this, and I can't remember the numbers, but back at BYU, they did a study on it. Like they asked this age group, and majority are like, terrestrial, even though they're all kingdoms of glory, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't even believe that they're good enough. They don't. Yeah. And I think that when you slow down, you can really hear what's really going on. You can really listen. Yes. You can really
and get away from your own narrative.
Yeah.
I think we have our own narrative that we've all been raised. I'm almost 55 years old. I have my own narrative, the checkbox culture. And sometimes your kids are saying things and you're like, no, you just need to do this, right? You're not really listening to what they need and what they want. And
why? But why?
Right.
Why? Why do you think?
Right. I just think that's how I was raised. So we were we just said yes. We didn't defy, we didn't change the narrative. We were just the generation obedience. I would never have told my parents, I'm not going to church today. I'm not sure, I don't believe in any of this. But you know what? When I went to Israel and study abroad, when I was in college is where I found my testimony. I'm in Israel. I didn't know anyone there. And I'm in the Holy Land and I'm touched by the Spirit. It's completely changed my life. So everyone has to be a convert. Whether you're raised in the church or not, you have to be a convert. And so I was a convert at 21 years old when I was in Jerusalem.
That's not too late.
And I was raised in the church. So,
it changed your life. It changed your life.
It did. And you have to want it. You have to be seeking it. So I think everyone's on a different trajectory. Everyone's figuring it out. And at some point, they will be at a crossroads where they will need to figure it out for themselves.
It has to be that way. It has to be.
Yeah.
But look, I have a really good friend. His name is Stephen Tager. And he studies narrative teaching, basically. And he has basically sermons. Like he studies sermons. And he wrote this sermon that is so powerful. It is called There Shall Be No Other Gods. And in this sermon, it's probably one of the most powerful things. Like it just changed my perception, my perspective of what we're talking about. Because the first commandment is that thou shalt have no other gods. And so he goes through this whole flow of information, and he has this phrase in it where he says, sometimes we actually have that culture of check boxes, right? Where it's like, check, I did that, check. And it's almost, he uses this phrase, he says, sometimes the God we worship is ourselves worshiping God. And I was like, whoa, like that can become our God sometimes. Our worship is ourselves worshiping God, what it looks like, what the appearance of it is, not what it actually is. Do you know what I'm saying?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the conversion to me that's necessary that you're explaining that happened to you is when you experienced the real God. When you went to where he walked, you had an experience with him. And even on the podcast, right? You have people that have different questions, but I've talked to many people who have left the church, who have come back, and they talk about an experience with God.
Yeah.
They talk about an experience with who he really is, not with what it seems that he is. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It's personal. It gets personal. Yeah. And it resonates. I mean, you have to be in the right headspace to want that in your life. And sometimes people don't want it in their life, but there's a remembrance. I mean, in the scriptures, it's constantly talking about remember. Remembrance is mentioned so much because I think at certain points when our hearts are kind of ready for it, there will be a remembrance. And that kind of brings us back into wanting to know more. So I love that in your class, you let them be vulnerable. You let them come to you with questions so they could really get them addressed. We don't need to be afraid of questions.
No.
I think sometimes, we can feel like we need to be afraid of that. So we don't, because questions lead to conviction.
Questions lead to the restoration.
Yes.
Questions lead, like the whole Doctrine and Covenants, every section is Joseph Smith being like, wait a second. What does that mean? But see, faith, I think that we misunderstand, like faith, it's faith in Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. We pray to align our will with his. That's what prayer really is. Mm-hmm. And
well, it's really helpful to have platforms too, like yours and what I'm doing as well, because we are addressing the negativity about the church and it is rampant. I mean, this recent event we went to together this last week, it was really eye-opening to know the negativity that's out there on Netflix and all these platforms that are attacking the church. And the little bright light in the corner is Scripture Central, diffusing all of it.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought, oh my gosh, what you're doing is really important. And how do you diffuse that negativity? Have you seen this as a kind of a mission?
Oh, yeah. Listen, this is what I was born to do. It sounds really cliche. I really believe that the experiences that I've had with comedy, with being a mascot, with, serving, it's kind of all bringing all those. And by the way, you're doing the same thing. Like you are doing the same thing that I'm doing. And it's just cool to see all these people trying to join forces. And I don't know when Jesus is going to come back, but we know that we're preparing. And this is what I think, like, we have to be clear. Like, we're preparing a people that will help prepare the world for the second coming. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that Scripture Central is definitely helping with that. I think that we need more people to do it. We need more people that are willing, like Elder Bednar mentioned in his talk when he came to BYU, but I think, was it 2015? 2015 is when he came? Or was it 2014? I can't remember.
Somewhere around
to
then,
flood the earth, to sweep the earth as if it were a flood. We just need more people to be their natural selves and not be scared, like to be a witness of God at all times and in all things and in all places, right? Mm-hmm.
And it testifies when you're not afraid to do that and you're just very transparent and vulnerable with people, they're not really offended by it. I mean, here in California, there's a bunch of my neighbors in the neighborhood who are LDS, and which is surprising because we raised our kids in Boston. Everyone's Catholic. And I think I had the sister missionaries go to every one of their houses 50 times. They're so sick of me. But, when I had opportune times to speak with them, I remember this one experience with my neighbor down the street, heavily Catholic, very committed to the faith. But she had an experience where she felt like she had a witness from Jesus Christ. And she didn't feel like she could tell anyone in her community, but she told me because she knew I was also a faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ. And it was so when you just live it at certain opportune times, you will be connected to people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and your
Amen.
podcast is doing that, right? You're very real, you're very open, and you're addressing difficult topics through a faithful lens. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we need right now. We need members of the church to just live their faith and not be afraid, because when you say truth, it resonates. It hits people in their heart.
That's what the Holy Ghost's job is to do that.
Yes.
It
Yes.
can't do it unless it's true, right? It witnesses of truth. And it's interesting because, yeah, these are the hard topics. And so we want to make sure that it's clear. It is okay to have a question. There's nothing wrong.
Yes.
What's wrong with having a question? Nothing. But what do we do when we have questions? How do we approach God? And I feel like hopefully the podcast is helping people see over and over again examples of people or getting information that can help them decide for themselves what's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I always like to meet people where they're at and then say, okay, well, because people don't know this, but in the conversations, I really want to bring it back to what the doctrine really is.
Yes.
Like there's that's the question. Okay, well, what assumptions do you have about the question? Like what are the misconceptions about the question? Let's really look at it, and then maybe we could reframe it a little bit and say, okay, well, now that we've looked at that, let's look at a different angle, okay? Right? What is it really like? Is it possible? Like, are prophets supposed to be perfect? No.
Right.
Where does it ever say that? It doesn't say that. Like Jesus Christ is the real hero, and let's focus more on him. You know what happens? What would it look like if he did that?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I always say at the end of every episode, hey, it's not up to me. I mean, don't take our word for it. It's up to you to find out for yourself. You ask God. You need to go and ask God about these things for yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that's such an amazing invitation for people at the end, because I think most people are looking for a way to stay in.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to these resources because they want to find information,
Yep.
but they're getting all this negative information online because when they were showing the stats up on the screen the other day and you see a lot of red dots for negative, there's one green dot and that's Scripture Central.
Yeah. Well,
And all the other people on that committed team. Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's so many people. There's so many people doing it. I mean, and we hope to encourage others to do the same, you know?
So do you feel like you've been called to this work? Does
Oh,
this
yeah.
feel like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
What do you hope to continue doing with the podcast? I just want to wrap up with just kind of,
Yeah.
what is your vision for this? What do you hope to accomplish with this?
You know, I mean, coming slowly but surely, my initial goal is to have 1,000 conversations that will matter in 1,000 years. Right. And so I plan to just have just like, hey, here's my contribution. You know, there's this book called Think and Grow Rich, and he talked to a bunch of wealthy people of how to be successful. Well, I want to talk to 1,000 people that have had experiences that matter for real and learn from them. I hope to learn more. I hope to connect with more people. I hope to attract people that care about truth. I want to make it more frequent, but I mean, ultimately, so I want to do. I'm toying with the idea of doing a PhD. I don't know if I will. I mean,
you're getting one right now.
I feel like God, every time a guy's like, you need to get a PhD. I'm like, why? Anyway, but I like this idea of taking something that's complex. There's so many. One of the things that we want to do is take a lot of these experts that know this really well, that can actually distribute it in a way that's accessible and understandable. They have all of these research papers that are like locked up in these vaults, right? I want to study how to really make something that's complex become more digestible and more accessible. That's what you do in comedy, right? But just do it maybe on a higher level of these complex ideas, like many of the questions that people have of church history, and make a library that's accessible to the world. Like a master class, you might say, like a Peterson Academy, to where anybody, anywhere could pick it up, any topic, and there's just like a real library, but digitally, that can reach the world.
Well, I think that is an incredible ambition to have, and we have the technology to do it. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like we have the technology, which can be a great blessing, but a great detriment, but you're using it as a blessing. And thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time today. I loved our conversation. I'm so inspired by you. Keep it up.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This is a pleasure.
This is the What Now Podcast.